All right, sweet as. So, are the replays ready? Are they good?
I think so.
All right,
Should
I'm
I try to
gonna
open one?
put a little mark on my stream, make it nice and. Whoops! What did I just do? I just played a 60-second ad break. I misclicked. The new dashboard. New dashboard woes.
It's actually cool though, the new dashboard.
It's actually nice.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a misclick. Whoops. All right. We won't have any valuable content in that time then. That's fine. Okay, awesome. So I think we're all set up. You've got replays. I've got replays. We're going to talk about a bunch of random shit. I've got a Twitter feed here where tons of people ask questions, a few of which I will ask. I'm not going to ask you every question. What I like is every time I ask a Terran, I can't believe it. They're starting drilling upstairs at fucking 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I heard that.
Oh my god, this was so noisy yesterday. Oh, this is hopefully not going to ruin the show, man. We're just gonna push through, and hopefully it's all right. Every time there's a Terran on, there's like so many meme responses. Did you see Jason's application to get adopted by you?
Yeah, yeah. I saw that.
Yeah. You reckon you'll accept it?
Yeah, yeah. Just because of the comment that says he also accidentally manner meal.
All right. Okay, cool. We got
Do I need
questions
to
ready. We got
extract
that.
the file before I can watch the replays?
Yeah. So basically, if you just right click on it and just go extract here or whatever, especially if you, I would already drag the thing into my replay folder that I want it to be in.
Ah, that makes more.
Or you can just double click the replays from wherever you extract them to. But yeah, you just right click it and do extract here, and then they'll all just plop out.
Is that the sound it makes?
Jesus Christ.
There we go. Oh,
All right. I'm going to turn my mic sensitivity down,
there we
my
go.
mic gain down, and I'm going to try to speak right into my microphone, so hopefully this doesn't absolutely ruin people's eardrums. We'll see how we go. Good to see the... Why is Protoss a garbage rate? Okay, great questions. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be taking questions from chat, guys. Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
so honestly, I think your series versus Straya was awesome and crazy. So I reckon why not just dive into that one,
Okay, sounds good.
dude? You kind of punched your way out of the grave in that series a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah. I was very happy with that because for so long I've been struggling like mentally during the games, you know. So for me to make like comeback victories is kind of rare. So I was very happy with that one.
Oh, I really thought you were dead in that one. And I actually don't see those replays in the replay folder. I don't know if you have them.
I have. Yeah, I see all of them.
Jesus Christ. So they show up for you and they don't show up for me. God damn it.
I could probably just send them to you.
Yeah, drag them to me. Oh my god, man. Talk about tech issue day. This is it. It also shows, I mean, yeah, you and Need played a lot of maps. Holy crap. 1, 2, 3, 4,
like
5, 6,
10.
7, 8, 9, 10 maps. Damn.
10? 9, yeah. I sent them to you.
Sweet.
Should be there.
Yeah.
Trying to remember the order. Roll the sleepers. Oh yeah, okay. I remember all of these games, I think.
Yeah. Because I don't think we've got the map order on Wikipedia. Let me just double check. Do you remember what was map 1?
Yeah, it was Roll the Sleepers.
It was? Okay. Let's get Cheeseadelphia open. And here we go. Yeah, because this was the lower semi-finals, essentially, is what this series was.
Yep. Winner got top 3, basically.
Yep. It's a big match, man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we are finally into it. Let's go. And
I feel like every time you have like the thing where you need to log out to watch the replay, it also messes up the settings.
yes, yeah.
Like the graphics are different, and sometimes the sound is like
I know,
booming in your
right?
ears as well.
Like you can sometimes, as long as your settings are right beforehand, it'll save some of them. But like you can't even change your settings once you're in there. And of course, for
Yeah.
anyone who's never done it, you have to tab out and tab back in when it's reloading your game, or you'll wait like 3 minutes sometimes for it to actually load. Some people just stare at that black screen for like 10 minutes. I'm like, no, you need to tab out and tab back in, or it takes forever to load.
I just
But,
hit my computer. It works too.
All right, let me just check where I've got this. So I'm going to drag that up just a little bit. So our little uThermal cam is not blocking the score screen. It has decided to keep my overlay correct. And fantastic. All right. Proper intro to the show now. Hello, everybody. This is the big show. We got Marc here. We've got uThermal. We've just had an interesting technical setup. You can see there's a very professional overlay. We've got a professional webcam live feed straight from Mexico. And, of course, the Cheesy Delphia runner-up. So we're just going to talk about a bunch of stuff, look at some cool games. We're starting with some replays of you versus Straya. But I don't even really want to necessarily talk about them that much. I just want to kind of have this on in the background while we chat at first. So, you just got back. You're staying in Mexico at the moment. How long you been there, and how long are you planning to stay in Mexico right now, man?
I've been here since August, and I'm going back after Christmas. So I'm like 2 more weeks. And
Oh, after Christmas. So you're gonna have a nice warm Christmas. You're not gonna have the traditional kind of northern snowy. I guess it's not so snowy in the Netherlands, but it's pretty cold, right?
it gets snowy.
Yeah.
During Christmas sometimes. Yeah. No, it's very different here. I mean, the weather here is way nicer. I don't like it when it's cold.
Good,
Here's
man.
like 25 degrees. Much better than -2.
Yeah, man. A lot of StarCraft players and nerds in general I meet, they're like, I love it when it's cold and I like it when it's raining. And I'm like, no, just give me sunlight, man. Give me that moderate temperature.
I like it when it's raining. I just don't like it when it's fucking freezing. You know?
The one exception is if I'm like literally just sitting here. I just got air conditioning. So summer, there's like the really hot days in summer, there'd be a point where I'd just be sweating my ass off, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, this is, I feel like Todd at a tournament. I'm just like, this is too fucking hot. This is unacceptable. Like, do you get that when you're playing? If you get too hot, like you just feel like you can't think straight and you start doing dumb shit.
Yeah. It's just you just don't have the concentration, you know. You give up faster and stuff like that when it's too warm.
Yeah, exactly.
I still prefer it to be too hot than too cold. Like, when you wake up in the morning and it's too cold, so you can't really play, so you just kind of sit there, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, dude, I actually haven't experienced that in a while. I used to live in this really shitty share house. So, Australia, I live in Sydney, pretty moderate, right? It's pretty cool. Europeans are always like, I'm complaining about it being cold, and they're like, wait, what's the temperature? And I'm like, oh, it's like, 14 degrees Celsius or something. And they're like, you think that's fucking cold? And they're like laughing at me. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. There's people who come from Poland, Norway, and they always say their winters in Australia are the worst they've ever dealt with. And it's specifically because we don't know how to friggin' build houses. We're like, the temperature's so nice, we don't need any insulation. Like, basically, like, the wind blows and it just goes straight through the house onto you. So it can get slightly cold, and you just have to wear all your clothes inside. Like, your heating bills are insane because any heating just like drifts out of the house immediately. So yeah, man, like the old days, I remember in every 2 ladder games I'd have to go to the bathroom and run warm water over my hands to try to stop them from being too cold. And I come back, I'm like, I've got a few games with the blood flow, and then I got to run back and do it again.
I did that too, actually. I would run it over my wrists. I was able to play a game, like right before the tournament match or whatever.
It's actually a good tactic, man. I think it makes a big difference. So check it out. By the way, I don't think you can see my cam on the call, but I've just figured out this awesome way to do my ghetto setup. Since I'm just full screening the camera, I'm using my phone as my preview screen right now. So I'm watching our stream on my phone to make sure I don't screw up anything. It looks good. This is very professional. I'm pretending it's my professional. Okay, it's like the preview monitor tablet. It's like we're in a professional studio. This is basically WCS.
Basically.
Cool, man. Random thing that just occurred to me. I just had a beautiful night of sleep. You were nice enough to delay the show a little bit because I literally forgot to set an alarm. Woke up and I was just thinking about sleep as a pro gamer and how Snoot used to always go on about how he slept like 9.5 hours a night, sometimes more than that. And I've talked to a few pro gamers who like barely sleep. Some who are really strict on it. Some have wasteman schedule. Drogo. And basically, I'm curious. Do you sleep a lot? Do you have a schedule? I mean, you travel a shit ton, so it's pretty hard to like actually get good consistent sleep, right?
Yeah. So I care a lot about sleep. Actually, I'm one of those people that if my sleep's messed up, I just can't play properly. So sleep is like my priority. But if I don't have a lot of tournaments like now, I don't mind sleeping at like 3 a.m. You know.
Yeah.
But when there's a tournament coming up, I always fix my schedule to wake up at like 8 or 7 even.
So that's
or when
like
I go to well, GC Delphia was like the same time zone almost. But if I go somewhere with a different time zone, I always try to adjust my sleep so my schedule's like online with where I'm going.
So you try to shift it like maybe 1 or 2 hours a night kind of thing, so it's like a gradual thing.
Yeah. So like if I fly to the west, like from Europe to America, it's the best to actually be a waste man. Like if you, let's say you go to the East Coast, which is 6 hours behind from Europe. If you sleep at like 4 a.m. normally or 5 a.m., that means your sleep schedule is like 11 in the night for American standards, which is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So going to the East is the hardest because obviously you can't go to bed at like 4 p.m. every day. But you can at least make it as early as possible.
I guess the ones which are hard to prepare for is like your big DreamHack open brackets, right? Like where you've got, okay, if I've got to play first group stage, second group stage, by the time you get to third group stage, sometimes you're playing at like 11 o'clock at night, but you've started playing, at 11 a.m. that morning. And it's like, you can't be at peak performance for a 12-hour window, right? Like you're always going to have a bit of fade. So there's like, you minimize it for part of the day. I guess with that sort of thing, you'd probably want to be peak performance at the end of the day, right? Later in the evening where the bigger matches happen.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like with the... I think like the open bracket is actually kind of hard for most people. Like it's not, even if you're a pro gamer, it's not like you're gonna get to group stage 3 easily, And I don't think you really want to go to the knockout bracket too early. So I feel like you just want to, sleep as long as you can and wake up as late as you can. Like if the tournament starts at like 1, you really don't want to be waking up at 9 because that's like 3 hours of your day or extra fatigue and it's wasted basically.
Well, that's always like the depressed look you see if you run into someone who knows their match isn't until like 6 p.m. and you see them at breakfast at like 8 a.m. and they're like, yeah, I couldn't sleep. they're like, I know I'm going to be so tired by the time my match comes.
Yeah. But also I feel like, imagine if you got seeded in group stage 3 and compared to a guy who plays group stage 1, if you both wake up at 10 a.m., I almost feel like the group stage 1 guy has an advantage because I feel like waiting for so long takes like all the spirit out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're not focused on the game at all. You've been sitting around for ages. Like just think of how useful you are after sitting in an airport for 8 hours. Like you're not useful anymore. If you've been working, I feel like you're in a better state, bro.
That happens with double elimination brackets quite a bit, right? Where like you like blitz through the upper bracket, and sometimes the lower bracket can take forever to catch up, right? And if you're sitting there in that upper semis or finals, and sometimes you're like, and now you get to wait 5 hours. I remember people used to be like, oh, you've got such a huge advantage. They've shown all their strats, like, and I was like, yeah, like that is true. Don't get me wrong, that does make a difference, but you would also often see the first 1 or sometimes even 2 games in this series, like the guy who's been waiting looks like he's just a bit slower. He's a bit clunkier, like because he's been sitting there for so long. Like, there's a point where, like you said, you sit there for 6 hours with nothing to do. You're going to start to lose some of that focus and that energy.
And the other guys warmed up, right? So, actually in Philadelphia, they wanted to do a pretty sick format at first. They wanted to play the entire winner bracket on day 1. So like, Neeb would be waiting in like the finals for like 6 matches to play before him, and then play. And I thought it would be really hard for the guy in the finals.
That's rough, man.
yeah. So at least this time Neeb still had to play Masa in like the winner bracket finals. But if they did that, like I imagine him showing up as late as possible, like 1 p.m. or something, and just waiting until like 8, doing nothing, watching every game.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Just a quick note for anyone watching with really beautiful bassy speakers or headphones. I apologize. Renovations going on upstairs. Anyone with really shitty in-ears, hopefully it's not too bad for you guys. since you won't get the terrible bassy noises. So heads up, if you guys, if it's really unwatchable, I apologize. There's nothing I can do, but I would advise switching to a really shitty audio setup, and it'll probably sound a lot better. Right, yeah, I'm remembering this game I'm watching right now. So we're watching you versus Straya, and this was a real kind of crazy action-packed series. We saw a really interesting expansion pattern in World of Sleep. Is actually just talking about this game quickly. Have you? Is this something anyone else does? Expanding along the top left of the map?
No, I haven't seen it, but I wonder if it's to counter my style. So I feel like this game went bad for me because before my game, I saw Australia talking with like the Protoss players I played before, and they told them about my style, which is basically to do nothing and drop like drilling claw widow mines all the time. And I don't know. I feel like I couldn't really get in. I couldn't predict where his bases were, so like I tried to drop the vertical third because that's always the third base, but there was nothing there all the time. It was very strange for me to play.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because of that or if he just does it because he does it.
Well, it was a super controlling turtley style, and I think if there's a way to play this map, that's it, right? Like, it's so powerful to just have those defensive Phoenix and stuff. And yeah, you were just playing macro like a beast. You were doing these little like, hey, Marine drop tries to pull him out of position, and the Widow Mine drop slides in the back, and he's just always got either the Phoenix or the other units just waiting there, kind of watching for it.
And the cannons as well. So even if I get in, it wasn't as bad.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of insane. And once he gets in control, I mean, we at this point in the game, you were dead. Whenever you get pinned back as a Terran player, and you're like just holding on by having your Liberators or your tanks barely siege in position in time, it's like you're pretty screwed usually, because Zealots can just, blitz a mineral line a moment when you're not there. Things can get really difficult as well. So that's actually something I wanted to talk about a little bit. I've been wanting to have a conversation with Special. And he's not been interested in talking about it. I think he feels he's talked it to death. But TVP, and a lot of people have been asking me on stream, and I normally don't talk about it that much. But it's a matchup which I think for a long period of time has been the most complained about matchup by Terrans, right? It's like kind of seen as the most difficult, the one where it's most inconsistent. I think there's a broader problem with Terran, which I'd like to ask you about a bit later, which is it's sometimes hard to tell what you did wrong or what you should have done better in a loss. It's like a little bit harder than the other races because you're more aggressive and a few other reasons to kind of look at it and just draw a very simple conclusion about what you can do better, right? Because everything's on a knife's edge. But in TVP especially, I think there's a scouting disparity between the races, which is, for me, the big thing. I feel like as the Protoss player, you've got hallucinations, observers, and oracles are the three big scouting tools. And it's very hard to stop them seeing basically whatever they want, right? I feel like a lot of Terran players play this matchup accepting that everything they do will be spotted ahead of time and prepared for, whilst the Terran player finds it very difficult to recognize exactly what variations the Protoss is doing and to adapt to that quickly enough, since the Terran production is very much set in stone. You can't just swap your add-ons around, and go one way or another. I feel like Terrans have kind of veered more and more towards super generic TVP to make up for the fact that they can't really be as adaptive in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of the same against Zergo. Like for Terran, you have the Reaper Scout, and that's most of the scouting you do. And then the reason Terrans always do something like mine drop or whatever, that's actually mostly to get scouting information. Like if you do a mine drop, you want to know, for example, on this map, if you come in from the natural, you want to see if he has all the gases or not, so you know if he's going Colossus or something else. It's not just that you want to do damage, but that's also how you scout.
Yeah,
the aggressive.
You're counting the drones against a Zerg player as well, right? You just
you send Hellions or you send the Liberator or whatever. You get a lot of scouting information with that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Because I mean, you think about it, right? Terran has the most beautiful scouting in the scan, right? It's just, obviously, minerals are kind of important in StarCraft, right? Every time you choose to scan, you are losing 200 or 225 minerals. over the next, what is it, 60 seconds or whatever. It's a lot of minerals, especially early on in the game, right? Losing that many minerals, it's a cost. Like, if we think in Brood War, a comsat station, once you got that up, it was just for detection and scouting. There was no economic, oh, you're punching yourself in the dick to get a bit of information. Whereas, as a Terran player, I mean, we're looking at a race that is generally seen as aggressive, timing attack oriented, and it's all about, if we can get enough pieces together, your fights are going to either go really well or really poorly because it's a glass cannon race, right? Long range units, low hit points, high damage output. Very mobile. Marauders and Marines, probably the best units in the game, as long as you've got the god tier micro to always avoid the splash damage and to always stutter step them appropriately and that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to actually, kind of say, hey, I'm going to have 6 less Marines during my timing attack or 4 less Marines because I did a scan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think scan is like, at the same time, the worst and the best thing about Terran, because I feel like in the late game, the mass orbitals, that's the reason why Terran is good in late game, I think. But early on, you can't scan at all. Like, that's the main thing about Terran. For example, in this game, I decided to go for the late game because I feel like Terran is stronger in the late game than in the mid game. Like, you always go into the mid game a bit behind, but once you get to the late game, it's pretty good. But if you scan anywhere like before 6 minutes, you're just stabbing yourself basically. Like, it doesn't. Yeah, it just really sucks. So
yeah, I mean,
it's just the replay.
It's a big cost, right? This is why, I mean, the best Terran players, I see you guys, you're always hiding, like, in certain metas, there's an SCV or a Marine that kind of hides in a certain spot to check the timing of a third base or something. One of the big ones we see in this matchup is often there is roughly around 6 minutes a scan on the natural to see the gases. And then there might be another scan or a scout, assuming you can't get the vision with harassment, on the third base to see the gases on the third, right? These are the two kind of big pieces of information that tell you, are you going to have 46 charge lots attacking you and you've just got to sit behind your wall? Or are you seeing someone who's going Storm, Colossus, double upgrades, 5 base, and you need to be in his face, right? Because there's two very, very different gears of Terran versus Protoss there. It's either you're like literally just camp, just wait for the better army. He's investing in shitty short-term Zealot units, or he's going for every splash damage in the game. And there's a certain point where if they get, Storm, Colossus, cannons, batteries, 5 bases up, and you're not at your supreme late game by that point, you're pretty fucked, right? So you kind of want to be very aggressive with your harassment, or you want to really sit at home and make sure you don't die to these timing attacks.
Yeah, I think mostly it's about scanning the third base. Like, I don't think you really need to scan the natural. If you do any harassment, you're gonna see it. And if you don't, then you probably don't have any. You shouldn't be moving out anyway,
Because you got no map presence, right? You haven't really done anything to the Protoss. Stalkers are probably going to blink on anything, and there's just too many things that could happen to you, right?
But it's mostly about the Colossus. It's like the new Colossus builds people have, where it's fast Colossus. If you don't realize it's that and you move out, you're just going to get crushed like really hard. So yeah, either you do like a mind drop and you see what it's going to be, and you start at 30 CC or whatever, or you play blind and then you take a huge risk, or you just you don't attack. Anyway.
Yeah, some of those Colossus timings are brutal, man. Like the Korean Protoss especially just do some disgustingly good timings with that. Cool. Yep. Let's hop into that next one. Alright, while we do that, we will grab a few questions from chat while I
quit
tab
StarCraft and restart it. So
let StarCraft have its little seizure. Because remember, Microbial Shroud got buffed, Marc. Are you worried? Your Liberators aren't going to be able to kill Hydras anymore, man. That's how you counted Hydras before, right, Liberators?
I mean, depends on the situation. Or just Marines. I'm kind of... I think if they make it work, it'd be a cool ability, though.
I think so as well.
If they could make it work against Protoss somehow, like pretend Storm doesn't exist or whatever, I think it'd be really cool, because I think everyone's kind of done with the Zerg late game stuff, right? The Brood Lords and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really enjoying trying to play kind of like a Hydra Lurker Viper style ZVP, and I think you want Fungal with that for locking down those air units on Parasitic Bomb. throw a bit of Microbial Shroud in there. Why not? It's still super niche spell though. So I always found it so funny that they gated it behind so much. What was map 2?
It was Simulacrum.
It was Simulacrum. All right. Yeah, because gating
how
that
do you pronounce it?
Simulacrum.
Okay.
I think that's right.
Everyone has a different one, so it's kind of funny.
I'm pretty sure I'm correct here. So Simulacrum pronounce. We're gonna let some British accented person on Google teach us. We're gonna learn together, Mark. Let's go.
Let me turn on the volume.
Simulacrum.
Simulacrum. Let me wait. There's an American pronunciation.
Simulacrum.
Okay, I say American pronunciation. Simulacrum. Right.
Simulacrum.
The simulacrum.
Simulacrum. Got it.
I always
of automaton. You know, everyone's like automated or whatever.
Whenever Todd said it, it just made me so joyous. I got this gigantic smile. He'd be like automaton. I don't know. It sounded beautiful to me. I was like, this is great. Like everyone said that one so differently, man. That was a fun map as well, actually. I remember that was like
for us.
Do you remember Cyril's like proxy Ravager on the gold base?
Oh yeah.
And he just it was like I was like, oh my god, if Cyril's proxy hatching on this map, like, oh my god.
I don't think it was that good, to be fair. The proxy. It's just you know how big the main was?
Yeah.
Like just imagine every time you play against the Protoss and they play Blink, you're just like you put four things in your main to cover all the space.
I remember I would just try to get away with 3 racks every game on that map. I'm a terrible Terran player. I'm like 54, 5500 on NA, right? So I'd just be like, oh, if I just want to get stim up, and I'm like, I've got like a second bunker in my main every game, and I'm like, oh my god, this is disastrous.
Back then the stim was 20 seconds longer, so to research.
I feel like my stim still does get sniped. It's just now it's 1 second from being finished rather than 21 seconds from being finished. But I think that's a testament to me being a terrible player.
I noticed a lot of less Protoss try to snipe it because it finishes faster.
That is true.
Before, like if you did a move out, there was like an 80% guarantee he would be like next to your main with 8 Blink Stalkers waiting to go in. But now it doesn't really happen anymore.
Yeah, man. They used to get sneaky as well. You'd try to spot it. Ooh, can you still hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, I can still hear you. You can hear me, right? I think we've just lost the camera feed from you.
Yeah, I just crashed somehow.
Oh, we're back. You can hear me fine? Sounds all good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I was telling something, but I disconnected in the middle somewhere, and now I forgot.
We're talking about... I've already forgotten as well.
The Blink Stalker.
Ah, yeah, Blink in the main.
Yeah. So before, I feel like Protoss players don't really try anymore. It's like before you move out with anything, there's like an 80% guarantee. There's 8 Stalkers next to your main waiting to get that stim, but now no one bothers anymore. So.
Yeah, it's definitely changed things up. So this map number 2 on Simulacrum, by the way, dude, I feel like best of 5, you have to do the proxy heli and drop 1 game. I think this is such a good build, man. Like, the number of times I see this pay off. By the way, I don't know if you realized, did you watch this replay at all? Did you see how close he was to scouting it? His Stalker.
Yeah, we're seeing it now.
Ooh, I was watching it, and check it out. And then his, like, he had a Stalker in his main, I think. Yeah, and it leaves the main as the drop comes in as well. Not that one Stalker was going to stop it, but it was, like, almost comedic. Because I was live casting this, just radio casting, because I was really excited to see how this series went. And it was kind of hilarious. I was like, oh no. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think this build is really good as long as they don't play Stargate. Then it's instantly very bad. But
yeah,
I wasn't expecting him to play Stargate, so I don't know. I feel like most of the time you're pretty far ahead. If they defend really well or you mess up, it can be like even, something like that. But this case is obviously very good for me, I think.
Well, I found it really fascinating that you got a Raven out of this. I don't know if I haven't seen that before, or I just haven't cataloged and kind of realized. Because I was thinking, I was like, I wonder if you follow this up with like a Liberator or a Banshee, or you just fly the Starport home. And the last thing I thought of was you build a Raven on location.
I like the Raven. Actually, it was funny because I I think he thought he scouted there already with the stalker. So his stalker's I'm gonna see the stalker like go right below the starport.
He's like, it must be in the top left corner. Something
Look,
like that.
I was watching in the minimap, so I thought he saw it because the unit was right there. But then I checked and it was delicious, isn't it?
Oh, so dirty. I love it. Obviously prioritizing a really quick tank and a bunker behind this.
Yeah.
Very important because, I mean, you know he's going blink. He's just taking a ton of damage. There's one thing a Protoss player is always going to do, and that is he's usually going to just run across the map and try to do big damage with his stalkers. He actually did a good job of kind of getting back into this game, and I actually think if he did some things differently, he could have actually had a chance of defending your timing. You know, I don't think he necessarily would have won there because you had a good economic position, but this was kind of an interesting game. So not only did he barely miss the starport, check out what happens with this robo when you push in. There is a Colossus like 0.2 seconds from getting out, and his army is just sitting behind it, assuming it's going to pop. He doesn't even try to buy time. And he messes up. He's gone double robo, and he doesn't control group his second robo. Or maybe he didn't have the money when he started it. Basically, he chrono boosts a robo that doesn't build a Colossus. And then he could have had 2 Colossus before the fight happened.
Yeah.
This is like just hilarious. I mean, you were obviously in a sick economic position. But the fact, yeah, he actually, I think, could have won this fight. Because the Zealots got on the tanks really well. If he focus fired them correctly, had a Colossus on the high ground, he could have killed all the tanks. And then the second Colossus could have rallied down. And he actually, 79 probes, 4 bases, would have been back in this game.
Yeah. I mean, if he crushed my army, he would have won. But if I saw a Colossus, I had to interference matrix ready as well. And
Yeah. Yeah, you would have.
The new matrix it's kind of shitty because it takes too much energy. But if you have exactly 2 targets, then it's perfect because they just last longer. Right?
Yeah.
So I think I was gonna win here anyway. Actually, it was the supply was a bit closer than I thought it was. But I guess it was because he had
without the auto turrets, the tanks definitely would have gone down. It would have been close. I mean, you definitely had more firepower.
Maybe.
They increased the duration with the interference matrix cost, didn't they?
Yeah, it's like 9 seconds.
It's 9 seconds now, yeah, which is pretty long. So yeah, I mean, it would still be really hard. But if he does hang on, he's in an amazing position. I just thought this was kind of crazy, considering how good the start was for you. Obviously, you know, that it was still this close. So, I mean, let's go back a little bit. Obviously, he powers up really, really hard economically, like it's crazy after that early damage, where it was 15 workers. I mean, I think you did lose the medevac and all 4 Hellions, but 15 probes, a bit of mining time. I mean, that's still pretty sick damage, right?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, he was playing very greedy, so that plays into it as well. I think. I don't know if he scouted the 3rd CC. I remember I killed the observer with my Raven, I think. So I don't know if he scouted it, but he was playing very greedy, and I didn't punish it. So that's why he got back into the game a little bit.
I think he honestly just dice rolled on saying you're probably going to go 3cc after this.
Maybe, yeah.
Because his observer gets out so late in this game. Because he goes charge, double forge.
Oh no, it was a Phoenix he sent, I think.
Yeah.
I thought I killed an observer, but it must have been a Phoenix because there was no robo.
He did spot the 3rd CC.
Now, he did see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he spotted it with that one, but he was already going to 4 bases before that. So
yeah. Exactly. He was being very greedy, and it was the right choice. But then I was still in a good spot. So
well, that's a huge thing actually, right? With Hellion run-bys, a way to gauge the damage is if the Protoss has already got the 3rd building, and then it's like finishing. Even if you do a lot of damage, the ability to have 1 extra chrono boosting Nexus, like they can rebuild their economy very quickly, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you killed 15 probes and his 3rd Nexus hadn't even started, say like your Reaper was there and it sniped the probe as it came out, and then your Hellion drop hit, it's almost like a catastrophically different level of damage that you've done, right? Where it's like if they're like, oh, cleaned up the Hellions, let's drop a 3rd Nexus. I feel like they're completely screwed at that point economically. Like they're not going to have anything near the bounce back capability that he showed in this game.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, I think if you look at the worker count and Protoss already has a 3rd base, but the worker count's even, then it's always good for there, right? Because normally Protoss is like 10 to 15 workers up, I think.
Yeah.
So even now, like it's only like 8 workers, even though he has 4 in XI. It means I'm in a really good spot, I think.
You scanned the natural this game at about 6 minutes. You saw the double forge. You saw no gases on that 3rd. So this was the game, and then I think this is the game where you scan his third a little bit later as well. Does this inform your decision making at all, or were you always going to push out with this attack?
So basically, scanning the natural, when I saw no gases, I thought he was just gonna go mass gate unit.
Yep.
Which confirmed to me that I was gonna win the game. Because I feel like if you have like mass bio with a Raven, you're not gonna lose to mass Zella or anything.
Do you focus more on Widow Mine production in that scenario? Is there like any, or is it just pretty much same as always?
If they go Colossus, I like to get the 4 tech labs and make no Widow Mines basically. And if they go for Zealots, you...
like so you mean you'll build tanks instead of mines?
No. You get 4 tech labs on your barracks out of 5 if they go.
Oh, you don't even get the second reactor against Colossus, really?
Yeah, because Marines are like trash against Colossus, right? So, but if they go gateway heavy, you just want to make mines and get a double reactor.
Okay,
and then I scanned the third, and I saw the gases, and then the only thing that really made me do is realize that I should actually push instead of camping.
Yeah.
Because I figured he was gonna go for the way I interpreted it was that he wanted to go mass gateway, but then
you scanned
the gas at his third, and he was gonna go for Colossus after.
Yeah. So it's like he's like, oh shit, I'm gonna mass gateways, and you're just gonna sit behind the wall. I'm not gonna like get the fight, right? Whereas if he goes mass gateway, he kind of wants you to go for this push out, surrounds it with zealots, blinks on your medevacs and Raven with stalkers, and suddenly he's back in the game, and then he can tech up or he can counter all in, right? If he's doing that style. But if you just sit at home, you're fine. So he saw you scout it. He said, shit, you're gonna sit at home now. I better tech up. You saw that he was teching up by spotting the gas, and you're like, oh, we should still push. Let's go.
Yeah, and that's when I felt like my scouting was perfect, basically. So I scouted the intention at first, and then when I feel like when someone wants to do something, and then you scout again, and you see that they changed their plan, it always feels very good because it feels like they messed up their build.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? So I felt like when I saw the gases at the third, I felt like I was gonna push and end the game.
That's like why Haas looks so silly sometimes, right? Because like Haas's whole thing is like, if you scout something, he'll swap to something else. So if you keep scouting him, at a certain point, it's just like, well, I'm doing this thing, which like is good against what you're doing, but it's 6 minutes late. You're like, well, this is just bad now. Like you've been scouted too many times. Like you weren't beelining towards this, right? There's no strategic focus. If you keep changing your goals, nothing lines up. It's not efficient at all.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like this is a pretty clean game. This is a good example of how you should scout as Terran, I think.
Awesome. All right, let's go into the next map. Actually, any other maps you wanted to specifically talk about? We can look at the last map. Let's go to Ephemeron, because that was the crazy game. Which...
Let me think. The third one was Eternal Empire, and I'm just trying to remember if it was interesting or not.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly. Eternal Empire was actually, I think, quite a back and forth game, but I think you ended up winning that one.
No, he won.
He did end up winning that? Okay.
Yeah. I think... Oh yeah, I don't think it was too interesting. I feel like I SCV pool, and then because I was expecting him to play just gateway style. I had like 3 Colossus when I arrived, so I couldn't do anything.
Yes, yeah. Colossus was SCV pool.
I don't know if there was a lot of action or something. So.
Yeah, your call. Which one should we open up?
Just what was the 4th game?
And then there was Triton.
Yeah.
Where you?
I think that one was fast.
You textbooked him, yeah. You kind of.
No, I personally 2x'd him.
Yes. He was ahead. This was a cool game. Let's watch this game really quickly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was ahead after that because his Oracle.
I thought I just won the game at the start.
Really? Well, this is I'm gonna learn some shit. Then we're looking at this for sure. I want to learn some stuff, man. Let's watch that one quickly. Because, like, at the very start, I thought he was underreacting, and I do still think he could have pulled more probes and stopped your bunker ever getting up, because he kind of realized what was happening early enough. But he was trying to do a minimalistic pull, because he was like, no, I'm mining with 3 guys on each gas geyser constantly, because I want to get an Oracle in and just ruin you. And his Oracle got in there, but it only got like 4 SCVs or something, 4 or 5, and your Cyclone killed it. So it was one of those things where, like, if that Oracle's in there 5 seconds faster before your Cyclone pops, and it's got a few more seconds, like, it could go really well. But this was a cool game. So Proxy 2 racks.
I missed his base as well. I missed, like, the last 2 games I did the same build, and I missed his base both times.
The natural built on the third, right?
Yeah, like I scouted it both times, but I feel like both times he made it like after I left. Because I don't know.
Yeah, he builds them pretty late because he's trying to tech up. I think he might have got it faster in the other one, but So yeah, he's like literally just like, I'm gonna get this Stargate up, you know.
Well, he was intending to proxy Oracle before the 2, right? Or
I'm not sure if this was reactive or not. Let's go take a look.
He's in the chat. We can ask him.
Oh, is he? Oh, what's up, man?
It just looks like a very fast proxy. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he comes over.
I guess not.
No.
Very fast for some reason.
Yeah. Because he was about to put the Nexus down, right? And then his probe gets in. So he's like, yeah, he's sending a probe to the low ground. He's just going to do an expand. Sees the depot. He's like, well, no. Go build a core. Second gas pylon. Let's go.
I wonder why he didn't make a Zella. It's really hard to defend without a Zella, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the first thing I do is build the pylon. Because I want to get that Zealot going, like, and even, you know, and do that. That's interesting. Because, yeah, I remember I was casting it, and I was like, dude, he's just being too greedy. Like, pulling, like, 5 probes and just, like, 1 battery, 1 stalker. I was like, this seems kind of insane. He does great probe pull micro at the start. Let's take a look at this quickly. So, I think, actually, there's a little mistake here from Estrella, which is he doesn't control group his probes. Do you control group your SCVs when you pull them into a fight? I think, like, when this sort of early fight, you should always be control grouping them. So you can micro them separate from the stalker, or it doesn't matter for you.
I mean, as a turret, if you pull the SCVs, you just go with your entire army and you go in.
Yeah.
You don't like. It's very rare you defend something with your SCVs, I think.
Yeah, I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, I guess. What about when you're playing max packs?
I scout him.
Yeah. He accidentally pulls those probes, the weak probes that he did such a good job pulling back. He accidentally pulls them back in, trying to focus on this. And once he does get rid of this SCV, he loses 5 probes. And so at this point, you're like, I've just killed too much. Like, I win now. 5 probes is enough, right?
Yeah. I did a micro though. I can tell now. I could have killed like 7 or 8, I think, but I think I still win here.
It's cool to see you don't control group at all with this push. Are you just hitting F2 or pure boxing?
Yeah, just F2.
Okay. You still use the
from the 3x Super days where me and Diego were like particularly good at it.
Yeah.
And he told me one time, it's like, I think we're good at it because we F2. Because a lot of the other Terrans, they like find their Reapers on the map and shit.
Yeah.
But we were like really good at it because we just F2'd. So whenever I do a build like this, I make sure to just use F2 basically.
Well, that's actually a thing. In really scrappy situations, it's superior, right? So like I always make fun of True, right? True's a cool guy. I love the guy. We always have a good chat at tournaments. But he doesn't use control groups, ever, except for his hatcheries, right? And you get Lings fighting in 5 different bases at once, like he's just so much more comfortable microing that, right? Anytime the game gets crazy chaotic, he's really good, really clean at it compared to a lot of people. And I think that's something you should actually have times where you switch into just not using control groups, right? And it's the same thing, like if you're doing a protracted like Ling Bane war, the best Zergs won't actually control group the Ling Bane. They'll just like grab them from a rally point and just manually like micro them as separate squads. It's the same thing with any of these like really scrappy, crazy rushes, right? Like, I guess it's the same thing if you're sending, you know, proxy banshees in, you're microing a Reaper in the back door, you're defending at home with something else. It becomes like very manual, right? Like you might have control groups sometimes, but I guess in this scenario, it doesn't really matter that much.
I mean, if you do something like a banshee, you'll control group it because that's like if you do a rush like this, the only thing you have is Marines. You know.
Yeah.
It's not like you need to pay attention to any of your units. But if you send in a banshee, you want to control the rest of your units too. So
do you F2 like the actual F2 button, or is it a different key for you? Okay, it's just F2. And do you A move to start us up? Right click A move, right click A move.
Yeah.
Okay, you've never done like a fancy one of these weird ones people on the internet talk about, like I'm gonna use patrol or hold position or stop or something like that.
No.
Okay, same. People always ask me about those, like which one's superior. I'm like, pretty sure I've only tried one.
But it's illogical to do something else than A move now.
Yeah.
Because if you A move, like your units are not going to be on the same line. So if you just hold position, a part of your Marines is not even going to shoot or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It makes no sense to try something else, I think.
What about when you're target firing? Do you A click on the unit every time, or sometimes do you right click?
I right click if it's like multiple targets.
Okay,
like Banelings, then I just shift and
just right click
on them. Yeah.
Okay.
But if it's like a Colossus, then I A click it.
Dude, I always think of this game. It was one of the late challenges last year. You were playing Raynor on Cyber Forest. I don't know if you remember this game, but it's just so funny because it was the most Marc moment for me, where he was like on 85 workers and he was just rolling like Banes into you, and he cleared your entire army, and you were fucked. You're on like 53 SCVs or something because he's hitting you with Ling Bane counters on your third, and you stimmed 80 Marines through like 40 Banelings on creep, and you just like stood your ground and gunned every single one down before they connected and then won the game.
Yeah.
And I was like, see, this is like...
This is on year 0, I think.
Was it year 0?
Yeah,
I think maybe you did it on 2 maps. There was definitely a Cyber Forest game you did this to him as well. I could be misremembering. Maybe it was year 0, actually. But, I mean, that's just the biggest Marc moment where, like, I think this is something Terran players need to have bigger balls in that sort of scenario, right? You get some wins that way. But, like, when I try to describe you as a player to someone, I'm like, oh, he's the guy who just, his Marines fuck shit up, right? Like, you're crazy with your Marines.
That's because I call this the brick style. Shout out to Vindicta in the chat. I like to, like, make no gases and just make, like, mass Marines and just go for it, though. It's like
7 reactors, man. 7 reactors,
it's like
1
pure,
tech rod.
no, like I have some barracks without add-ons even.
Oh shit, man! Yeah, like I need those extra 6 Marines rather than waiting for the reactors to kick in.
Yeah. So since I did this so often, I'm really good at like estimating when I can just stand there and kill all the Banelings before they get to my Marines. So a lot of the times the Zergs, they get overconfident because usually Terrans run away and split.
Yeah.
But I actually know when I can just stand there and kill all the Banelings, right? And that's what happened that game too. He was just it was close to creep, and he thought he could aim with me away, but I knew it wasn't enough Banelings, so I just stood there and everything died, and he was like, oh, okay.
I was laughing watching that game. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I'm sure Raynor's having the same reaction that I am, where he's like, what? I was meant to win that fight. Like, this is bizarre. And I was like so impressed that you actually judged it, because you didn't hesitate at all. And I was like, okay, all right, yeah, Marc's stimmed down a lot of Banelings in his time. That shit takes some balls. Okay, cool. So very quickly on this hold, I mean, my thought was build a zealot. Like you mentioned that, build a zealot, but also pull more probes, right? And I mean, it's kind of interesting, right? Because like you're using this terrain. I love the fallback bunker. Basically, he's got to stop the bunker getting up on the high ground, or he's screwed, right?
Yeah.
So that's
like
what the fight's
both messed up a bit here, to be honest. Like I feel like I should have gotten this bunker up or killed more probes. Like he should have been better than he was. And also, honestly, you should make the second pylon on the low ground. I'm pretty sure. Like, it feels a bit odd to have it here. Like, even if I barely kill any probes, you're still going to be on 1 day.
Why is the pylon on the low ground help? Just to get a battery down there? Or...
Yeah. Because the main point you're trying to defend is your natural, really. You know? Like once
to
you
stop
have a
yourself
stalker,
getting contained.
Yeah. Like if you have a zealot, no one's gonna try to make a bunker on the high ground. It's just stupid, right? Because the timing works out that you have 1 zealot when there's 1 marine,
and it can just hold on the ramp, right? You've got to move through the zealot just to spot the high ground, right? So he can stand on that like middle point of the ramp and hit you as you move up it, right?
Yeah, or you pull like 5 probes with the zealot and you get batteries up on the low ground. That's the best way to defend it. That's what Neve did as well. I don't know how many probes you pull exactly. I think at the start it's like 5 with the zealot. And then
there's also an option to pull like another 4 or 5 probes, right, as well, just to like really hold it, or does that just get to the point where the Terran can just fall way back and be ahead because there's too much mining time? What would your estimate be on what the right? Yeah,
I think mostly.
Sorry?
So it's about the probes lost. Like if I've seen a lot of times Korean protos, they tend to pull a lot of probes, but then they lose like 9 of them, and they're just dead. Even if it seems like a good hold, they're just screwed. I think you need to be pretty clean with defending this.
Okay, cool. Oh yeah, okay, sorry. I was definitely getting my games confused. You were way ahead in this one. Yeah. Yeah, you were ready from the early game. Okay, you had so much more stuff. Okay, cool. We can take a look at that crazy Ephemeron game.
It's gonna be fun for me to see it because I haven't watched it.
Dude, you went did you ever watch Kill Bill?
No. I don't think so.
Well, I was just there's a scene, where she gets buried alive in a coffin, and then she like punches her way through the coffin and like fucking climbs out of the ground. And she's just sitting there just punching this coffin until the wood cracks with like, this much space. And I was like, that's Marc right now. Marc, so you were so fucked. I was also really sad for Australia because I was cheering for both of you at the same time. And I was like, oh, because he definitely was in the advantage. And there was this moment where he kind of gathered his whole army and went to start trying to contain you and threaten. And at the same time, your army snakes around the right-hand side of the map and just like appears out of the fog at his base. And he's like, oh, fuck, you know? And then you set up this beautiful base defense with your tanks and your libs, and you leapfrogged your libs and tanks so methodically to just not let him engage it, because he had killer splash damage. Like, and your army was this really low upgraded, super siege dependent
as well.
Yes, you had +1 Marines versus +3 armor. It was. I was like, oh, you're dead. I was like, you're so screwed right now, man.
Yeah. Australia was also really confident to go up against Massa after, I think. So I feel like we were kind of playing for a spot in the final somehow, because with my TVT, I'm confident against like any Terran basically. I asked him about it, and he said he was feeling pretty confident against Massa as well. So.
Oh, it did load. Stupid StarCraft's doing that thing where it was like not connecting, and then I Alt F4 just as it decided to connect. So one more try. Let's get in there.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, no worries. Take a quick break, man. All right, so guys in chat who are hanging out, we are going to draw the clips competition winner at the end of the show and let you guys vote on that. In the meantime, shout out your questions in chat, and we will kind of take a glance at those and see how we go. I'm going to start taking some questions from Twitter and ask Marc about that. We're just going to, steer this conversation wherever it may go. Authentication, connecting. We're getting there. Yeah. Okay, cool. We can open it up. All right. Load. Tab out. Tab back in. Says StarCraft crashed, but it didn't. It's gonna load. Yeah. Awesome. All right, how are we doing? Let me just get some Twitter questions on my phone going. We'll ask those. So I'm new to the webcam setup, guys. So we'll fix that for the next time. We'll use Skype or something like that. But for now, I'll turn the webcam off quickly and take a look. It would be nice if you can ask my Twitter questions. I'm here to hear it. I'm here to... Oh, yeah, no worries. You know that Big Gabe has 1.2k viewers right now, and they're missing out by not being here. It's all right. This all goes on YouTube. Aod. There's a lot of people watching things all the time, and if I was to constantly be like, I need everybody to see everything I do, then it would probably not be a very productive or fun stream for me. Obviously, we do try to do things at good times for people, but we do the best we can. It's getting very hot in here, so 1 second. It's going to hit 42 degrees here today in Sydney, guys. Should be fun. But yeah, don't worry, we will get them. A bunch of SCVs banging upstairs. Oh, I know, Fabsu. Heads up, try to use really shitty headphones or speakers if you can. Just turn your bass off completely. My neighbors will never be done drilling, guys. Sorry, the next few days is kind of shit. I apologize for it. It really does suck that this is happening for this episode, but yeah. Oh well.
I'm back.
Hey, what's up, mate?
There
so I was getting the two games confused with the game where you were behind from the proxy 2x. I mean, this one was a friggin' terrible start for you on Ephemeron.
Yeah. True.
You pull like 5 SCVs here, but he underestimates because he's like, wow, I slowed the barracks down.
It's over. Yeah. I mean, that's what everyone would have thought.
And you keep pulling SCVs. You're like, here's my 5th SCV I'm pulling, You're like,
I need to do something.
You lost 3, and then you pulled, so you pulled 2 extra, then you pulled an extra 5th SCV as well. And the thing is, I really think he should not have let this bunker get up. Now, obviously, he once again skipped the Zealot in this game, right?
Yeah.
And
this didn't make more sense, I think, because the rush was so dead,
Well, he needed to pull more probes, though, right? If he just pulled like 6 or 7 probes here, this is a pretty easy hold for him.
But he doesn't know there's a second SCV here. Like, this SCV randomly came. He didn't know it was there.
I mean,
Yeah,
the thing is, like, technically though, you should be safe against that, right? Like, it's obviously, and this was great. Look at these Marines. That one hit SCV when you body blocked, I was screaming into my microphone.
Yeah, yeah.
That was awesome, man. That was so cool.
Yeah, I really needed to do something special to win, and I somehow managed. I think.
Well, this made a terrible kind of almost game-losing situation playable, right? You cancel the Nexus, but from here, you do still end up behind. So let's fast forward a little bit.
Yeah, so what happened here was what I mentioned earlier, is that I scouted for the base, but I never saw any, so I think he just built it sometime after I left with my Marine or SV, whatever I used. And then I sat in my main base for way too long because I thought he was still on one base. Like, I thought he was just gonna Chrono Immortals and hide warpins.
Look at the timing on this.
You see? Yeah,
Look
that's
at
exactly
the
what I
timing.
meant, so.
He picks up the Stalkers and the Prism as you leave, and he is like, literally, you're both just out of each other's vision.
Yeah,
Look at this
so
shit. Look at that.
He puts the Nexus down.
You're kidding me.
After this, I scout the entire map, and
Yeah.
I just think he has no base, you know? So by the time I scouted it, I was still in my main base, I think, and then it was fully saturated, so...
This was, I mean, we talk about luck in StarCraft, and obviously you make your own luck, you can minimize bad chances, but this is one of those moments where, you know, you missed something by a fraction of a second, and it ended up being catastrophic for you in this game, where you're like, I've just got to survive. The two Vikings to shut down the Prism, tanks in really defensive posture, the bunker here forward.
Like, I usually could have had my natural by now, you know? He's on 36 probes, and I had no idea. I thought he was still on like 28, probably building a Nexus somewhere now, halfway or whatever. Or still trying to all-in me.
Yeah, you're like, oh, he's so screwed. Yeah. You know, I don't want to throw this game by being, oh, it's a fully set. Oh, god damn it.
You see it? Yeah. I'm like, oh.
I was impressed though with how you moved your tanks forward, so you didn't lose any depots or anything. Because I was like, oh man, if he gets a depot as well, that's him like really getting more damage than he deserves when you've got this much setup. So you were very quick to at least move forward once you realized what was happening.
God, I'm so dead actually.
Oh no, you were so dead, dude. Yeah. I'm. You're doing this all in. I was like, maybe he fucks up versus this because he's trying to rush Storm, and I was like, well, that's not going to be ready. You almost caught the High Templar, and I was like, oh, you don't even have stim, so you couldn't jump on the High Templar. It turns out slow Marines can't run down High Templar, man.
Nope. Actually, here I thought I was getting back into it, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Because when you have Protoss with this amount of tech, but with low money, what kind of happens is they have good units like Immortals, Templars, with very little of them. So I thought as long as I split well, I can definitely beat this.
Yeah, a good Storm on the Marines there was really crucial for him. And this was definitely, I mean, this game turns into a real scrappy game, and this was very unfortunate for him, sieging his Prism in range of your turret. If he got those 3 extra Zealots in, it's game over.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. That was that was like my moment where I was like, it's over, and then, you know, me wiping the sweat off my forehead. I got very unlucky at this point, actually. I had a pretty good spot, and I tried to retreat, but like I shift commanded my medevac to pick up the 2 tanks and leave, but for some reason it didn't.
Oh no!
So they just die.
You know what happened there, right? You clicked on them to pick up before they were out of siege mode, so it was an invalid command.
That's what happened. Yeah.
I've done that. I've done that before. Yeah. So it ended up just being like, nope.
I was literally telling myself out loud. I was like, what did I just do?
Oh damn, that's rough.
Because I actually felt like I was gonna win this fight here because so many of units were on the high ground. I would have put like 5 tanks low. You know,
damn.
I actually think I would have traded very well here.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out you're trying to fight for so long here. You're on 31 SCVs. He's on 50 probes. I mean, giving up the 3rd was absolutely the right call for him. And, yeah, your Marines here. You're like, come fight into my tanks, please. Please, I gotta stop you getting too many of these powerful units.
I took some pretty good trades here. Like, I killed all of the Zealots for free.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it can go so terribly wrong so suddenly, right? Like, you know, one storm or a couple of charge lots get on top and an arc on splash lands. The Zealots start intercepting our rally across the map. I mean, we're almost always desperate when we're rallying like 3 Marines at a time across the map. But yeah, you're kind of in this point. I mean, I want to dig into the psychology of Marc. This was just a few days ago. It's reasonably fresh at this point in this game. Did you feel... I mean, you know you're not in a great position. You don't have a lot of longevity. Are you basically just saying, we've just got to keep pushing and, you know, I've done a good job preserving my Marines. Maybe, just maybe, we can dig out some efficient fights. Like, it's never over completely. Did you think you were quite behind? Where's your mind at this point in the game?
I was not feeling that bad about the game, actually.
Yeah?
I felt like I was a bit behind, but at the same time, I felt like he had a composition that kind of allows me to outplay. Like, it's not like he's on Stalker Colossus. He has like Zealot Immortal with some storms and like a few Stalker. I don't think he has Blink even. He's like
exactly
Stalker Blink, I believe. So
yeah.
I felt like I was a bit behind, but I was in a position to outplay still. So I didn't give up at all. I was still kind of like in the full on fighting mode at this point. I felt like I could make it happen.
Well, that's it. You go into... I mean, this is your dream as a player. I want to see you in your comfort zone. It's a player who doesn't have mobile anti-air, no Phoenixes, no Blink Stalkers, and you're like, yeah, it's scrappy, it's down and dirty, but I can multi-drop, and I can dance these drops around, pick up, drop, pick up, drop, pick up, drop. And we're going to see, like, you're very patient with these medevacs, right? You don't just headbutt with them. This is something... like to throw a few little bits of newbie advice in these shows, so even if someone's a newer player, you know, they're not just learning about pro shit. Guys, notice it's very patient. That drop, Marc was looking at it, saw no defense, said, okay, let's commit. Once it went in, then he clicked this one in from the other side. And then we start seeing some very advanced knife's edge trippy droppies here, where this medevac in the main, I don't think this deserves to survive, but I'm pretty sure this is the medevac that...
It was quite low, yeah.
It ends up, these 2 Marines end up being like game changers, I think. This other medevac, we accidentally misclicked to the right, I think with an F2 when we sent our army across, or it was control grouped, and it almost died. Yeah, this was the medevac actually I was thinking. This is the 5-hit point medevac. Those 2 Marines in the main, by the way, killed a bunch more units.
I felt like something was wrong with my keyboard this game, because I also shift-clicked that one around, but it just went straight. Like, I didn't F2 it, I shift-clicked it down and to the right for my push.
So like maybe the shift button or something was getting a little bit screwed. Oh, I think we may have lost the Discord call momentarily. Can you hear me, mate?
Oh, yeah, I can.
All right, I'm going to go back and actually see what actions went through. That's always the advantage of a replay. Yep, you are back. Awesome. So if we go to your camera, slowest possible speed, let's take a look at this. And obviously I may be blocking the bottom right, but you guys can see roughly what's like. So we've picked up the medevac, we've clicked south. And we've clicked south here, and then I think this is meant to be a shift click there, and then a shift click to the right. Wait, let me see. What do we do? Oh, we were telling it to unload again, and then we've somehow just clicked it to the right. Yeah, I think this was meant to be shift click down here and over to the right. I'm not sure where this move command ended up, but at the same time, the army moves out to the right. So I'm not sure. If I click on your control group, does that include this medevac? No.
Do I have a control group?
Right. Oh, it does. Yeah, your main army, control group 1. Your main army. Wait, it's everything. I think. Yeah, it's every unit. So your control group 1 is literally an F2.
I usually F2 and I shift the medevac out. So I guess I probably misclicked it or whatever.
Right.
Because when I do a push, when I have like the drops around.
Yep.
I just try to F2 and then shift click those medevacs out, because it's the fastest way to do it. Because I usually have like random spotters around as well. Like, I want every Marine I have, because this was kind of all in for me. It's like on Storm. I don't think I knew what his upgrades were at this time. I forgot to click on them. I remember that.
Yeah.
But I was still on 2 bays with my 35 SCVs, you know. So I really wanted every unit I had, but I guess I don't know. Either my keyboard was actually buggy, or I just messed up like a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, right? In the heat of the moment, maybe accidentally just forgetting those extra clicks. We see this medevac as well. Those 2 Marines just killed 2 extra Stalkers and a High Templar, by the way. Absolute bosses. And then this 5-hit point medevac, which is...
I forgot to unload it, I guess.
This medevac pilot, her name is the fucking Bane of Estrella right here, right? She is literally... like this medevac ends up being such a pain in his ass. Oh, we do... we flew it back in there. Still, good damage. And then you're using this nice siege tank kind of leveraging positions. You're trying to, pull him around with this drop where you just pick up and get it out of there. Apologize for the drilling, guys. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. I'm really worried like they're gonna drill through the floor into my apartment from right above me, and
It's
you
gonna
guys
be like dust on your head.
exactly. Someone in like a bathtub's gonna crash down behind me or something.
Yeah.
You
this
at this
entire
point.
game was kind of like a mix of me like all-inning, but not really. Because I felt like I had to end the game, but I couldn't. But I was still trying, but I knew I couldn't. You know what I mean? It's like...
The dream is there, and you're like, I gotta push,
Yeah,
push.
yeah.
And each time you get there, you're like, I actually can't force this anymore. Shit.
But I'm trying still, even though I know I can't. But then...
Well,
yeah.
these are the uThermal death squads, dude. These little marine squads, every time he comes forward to engage, you'd like spread marines forward and shift click them on the Templar. And you're actually, up until that storm there, kicking his ass and not letting his storms land and gunning down a lot of High Templar and making it really hard. We saw you shift click on the High Templar, I believe, there with the siege tanks as well. And then, you know, he gets on your tanks and you bypass that side. You see him recall and you do a really good retreat here. Just getting out of there. But you know what? You've kept him in this scrappy zone. You've got the third up. You've got Liberators. You're still building tanks. We don't have add-ons on 3 of our barracks, so we can build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Marines at a time. There's no armory, no
this
more
was
upgrades.
actually a 2-base all-in at the start. Like,
Yeah.
I made 5 raids before my third. Just at some point I was like, I think I need to make a base.
You're mining from one gas. You realize, oh shit, I'm out of gas right now. And it's like, you take
I'm
more
out of
gases.
everything.
You're like, oh, you've actually got to send guys back to mining your main, you realize.
I do, yeah.
And I mean, you are really screwed at this point, and it's like it's winnable, except for the upgrade deficit. And that's what I see is like I look at this, and I'm like, there's still a chance here, and then I see that upgrade, and I go, I think Australia's probably got this one. Like, you know, you're gonna have to really.
There's so much gas as well to make like
10
or
Archons.
whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and this is a really nice catch for you in the bottom. Anytime you catch zealots with your medevacs, that's really nice. This is something I think a lot of players, if you're just getting pounded by one of these players who just A-move zealots around the side of the map the whole time, I think a really powerful move as a Terran is just to have these drops or double drops roaming out the edges. And if you're not as good at mechanics as like someone like you, who can obviously unload, manually, stim, stutter step, you can just send like a double drop 2 medevacs, 16 Marines, and A-move them just on the ground already unloaded to kind of clear out the edge of the map, clear out pylons, prisms, and then send them in as a drop, right? And it's like a much less micro-intensive, low APM way of clearing up map control. But I do sometimes see these Protoss players who are literally just like, I'm going to run Zealots in. I'm going to run some more Zealots in over and over. And I'm like, okay, come on,
It's very
man.
low effort, right? But
Yeah,
they still get you every time because you don't pay attention to it.
You got to punish that. Like, yeah, it's like at some point you've got to start just sending your units out to clear up the map. And you can actually queue up an A move to clear it out. And your Marines are incredibly efficient up against those Zealots with just a little bit of stutter step. So works out quite nicely. But yeah, this game got crazy, dude. So you're here, you're like, okay, I'm building up my siege tank count. I mean, looking at this now, like you said, this is your first time seeing the replay in context. Even though you're trying to be annoying with your lib, you've got this double drop just waiting to see that he's out on the map or something, or that he's distracted. And I call this a distraction squad. So in the late game, if you're very focused on siege units, and you're not as big of a ghost guy, this is a question we'll ask about in a second, Liberators tanks, if he engages you as you push out, you go to siege. You're like, fuck, go to siege. And he can just force you to siege on siege. And you can't really do much with a siege-based army, whether it be range lib or tanks, right? If he gets on top of you and kind of removes your immobility. Because the moment you're not pre-sieged, the splash damage just ruins your army.
You're just dead.
Gone.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of 2 or 3 medevacs or a Liberator on one side, a couple of medevacs on the other. And it's enough units that a warp-in can't deal with it. That's kind of like the rule in my mind as a Terran player. Is like, if you send 8 Marines in, they warp in a Zealot and you're done. And the problem, of course, is if you hit a point where they've got High Templar with Storm on standby, they're always ready. Even if it's a triple drop that comes in, there's a good chance Storm's going to get you, right? So it gets really awkward at this point where you've got to be super patient, and only once his army comes out of position do you send this drop in, and it becomes something where you warp in 8 Zealots against 16 Stim Marines in a mineral line, they're going to lose like 1 Marine and kill every Zealot, right? So you start to set up these problems, and the idea here is like, hey, if he starts trying to send his whole army forward and siege you, you're going to try to use these pieces to distract him and pull his attention away just enough and his units away that hopefully you can get across the map and get a nice siege up position, right?
Yeah. So because the main problem with armies like this, like as you said, because you have to siege, is that if you go anywhere where it's obvious, you're never getting to their base. They're going to threaten and you have to siege like every 2 centimeters. So I feel like going around is the best way to do it.
Yeah, finding that
feel like
surprise
this-
angle.
this sequence was very interesting because nowadays, if you base trade in PvP, it's like always bad for the Terran. But this is like the 5% where it actually allows me to win the game because I think I already have like 2 tanks and 2 libs or something in my main, so he can't really push in, and then my army is too big to clean up with warpins.
Yeah, man. Well, and this double drop that landed in his natural, like he was trying to reestablish his defense over there, and then you actually eliminate his mineral mining so quickly with this Liberator on the back of the 3rd. So this was a point where he should have been able to give up the 4th, give up the 3rd, fall back to his natural, warp in High Templar, get more storm energy, and he's got the mineral mining here, as well as a bit of mineral mining here to warp in those High Templar and those reinforcements. But you stabbed in here. You wipe out his natural mining, his 3rd mining, his 4th's gone, and he actually ends up with 1,000 gas and no way to spend it. And it was like this weird situation where also this combined where it's also he had Storm and you would just like stim 5 Marines, click on the High Templar. Stim 5 Marines, shift click on the High Templar. And you very methodically took that splash damage out. Whereas obviously if you move forward just in one big ball, 1 or 2 Storms, and your whole ability to base trade here is just absolutely gone in 2 spells.
Yeah. You need to be you need to pay a lot of attention to that.
And that
I
little
feel like now I kinda got him at this point. Because I can let the 3rd now. Like if he doesn't come back, he's not cleaning it up, so he has to go back. And then I can take the 3rd. And unless he like wipes my army and doesn't lose anything, I feel like I have enough at home to defend like an all-in attack. So I feel like this sequence is what won me the game. Even if he attacked here, ooh, that was...
Well, his army's so much better than yours, but like he's got like 5 Stalkers and no money. Right?
Yeah.
He accidentally flew his Storm drop in.
But you still lose too many units, I think, being him. The Stalkers instantly die to the tanks. Yeah. And then he's going to have to counter all in with like mass Storm Archon, basically.
Well, I mean, he's actually got to just... I think he actually had to A-move this a bit quicker from one side. Or 2 sides and just go, right? I think he needed to get those Archons on the libs. He needed to go send the Stalkers in afterwards. And the Stalkers obviously have to attack from the right and just try to blink behind the gas and shift click the libs down after hopefully the tanks don't focus fire on them because they're coming in a little bit later to the fight. But, I mean, this defensive position...
It's pretty hard for him to see what to do. Like, he's also like pushing my base now because he's not sure. But it's... Yeah, the trades are just too good for me, I think. Even if he would have reached my base with these kind of trades... Like, my main army would have just killed him.
Yeah. And I mean, you killed every single probe, right? It was just like, normally the Protoss can maybe lose 10, 20 probes, but get the rest out, and then they can just rebuild their Nexus, and they're fine, right? If they can clear that army at some point. But this was incredible. You just leapfrog so steadily and slowly here, and the Lib tank was just this unengageable army. No Lib range, no plus vehicle weapons, no plus ship weapons. 1-1 Marine still at this point in the game, so... You know, obviously it's a little bit... I'm sure Australia, if he's still in the chat, is like, fudge, this hurts, man. I don't want to watch this, right? But at the same time...
Sorry, buddy.
We see the doggedness, man, of a Terran in a real mobile, dodgy game. Like, you know, I've seen you look like you're a little bit behind against, like, Showtime many times over the past 3-4 years. And then just kill him.
The chat. No, I feel bad.
But yeah, man, like I've seen you. I'm like, oh, I think Marc's just gonna like fall behind and lose this game. Then you'll pick up your whole army. You'll like siege up Liberators in his main, in a Protoss main, and Doom drop right at the same time with like 3 libs in the edge of the main. I think your ability to find these positions and just be like, all right, I'm gonna keep playing is really powerful. So, I mean, I guess there's a lot of mental flexibility there, right? Where you're constantly adjusting your goals, right? You're often, I think it's hardest in a game like this because, as you said, right, you're on this borderline of saying, I need to finish it. He's getting ahead in this and this. I got to push. I got to all in. But there was multiple times in this where you would try to pull back at the last second when you realized you couldn't do it, right? And you would say, okay, well, like, I guess I build a 3rd command center, but I just keep building units and multi-pronging. And essentially it feels like what you're doing is you're just piling pressure on your opponent and you're digging for mistakes, right? It's like, yeah, technically your opponent is advantaged in these scenarios, but if I hit here and there, if I do this push here that's very scary, it doesn't work. Okay, maybe we'll split, hit the back lines. Are there any, and it might be on a semi-subconscious level, but if you think about it, are there any like set plays that pop into your head or set mindset shifts where you kind of say to yourself, wait, No, shift gears into multi-prong, pull back. This army is just to create a distraction. It's not actually about killing you anymore, and it's more about just creating threat and stabbing you in the back. And I want to try to make sure if it looks like you're going to fight, I'm trying to evacuate this army quickly and wait for a better fight later. Like, does your mindset shift in that way at all?
I mean, honestly, my main goal in the game is to get myself in a place where I can keep doing stuff. Like, if I just sit there and go for a big push, it doesn't feel like I'm in a good spot. Like in this game, I was behind, but I was still in a spot where I had a lot of space to do like drops and stuff. And that's the kind of place I want to be in. So most of my strategy in games like this is to deliver like a 1-2 punch basically. I want to keep on the pressure and then all of a sudden do a big push. That's what I'm trying to do. Because I feel like if I just sit there and do a push, it just kind of sucks, right?
Yeah.
So that's really what I'm going for. I'm going like throw as many punches as I have to, drop and just keep him busy, keep his mind busy, and then I want to go for a big push when he's not necessarily paying attention to it.
I guess if there's one thing you want to have faith in as a Terran player, it's the ability to, if you can find that one opening, things can run your way very quickly, right? The 8 Marines unattended in a mineral line with stim, 10 seconds, 25 probes, bam! Like that is massive damage, right? And no matter how bad technically the position is army to army, if they're just button heads, like you said, there's movement, right? So there's movement, there's distraction. And I guess there's an intersection between, the threat of the big frontal all-in attack and the backstabs. And there's a real fluid shift between that, right? Where you're constantly, I'm just trying to think of this in the terms of someone who's not an experienced pro gamer like yourself, right? And they kind of look at these scenarios and it's really hard for them to kind of formulate, where do I push? Why do I push? And for you, there's probably a lot of pattern recognition going on, right? Like, so if we go back to one of these points where I want to go back to when you first started, like kind of doing the multi-drops, probably around like the 9-minute mark or something like that. And just kind of, I want to just look at your camera on regular in-game speed. And I'm just going to kind of have a look about this to see where do we bounce our camera? How do we decide when to go in? Let's see how we do that. Oh yeah, I forgot there was these 2 Vikings while you did the frontal push as well, which is really cool. They decide to shoot the assimilator. Nice micro, Marc.
Thank you. The game is on the small screen, by the way.
Oh yeah? Sorry, man. Thank you.
I mean, I'm watching the game via the screen.
I appreciate, man. So basically, you landed 2 Vikings in the main. Did you think about landing one in the natural as well with that push?
I think I may have seen units there because it makes more sense to do that. I'm not sure what happened there.
We'll just go forward to about 11 minutes, I think. I forgot how slow the start was with the 2 racks. Let's find it. It'll be... Okay, you pull home, and this is when we go into clear up some zealots, and we start splitting drops off. So if we fast forward about 30 seconds from here... Alright, let's go to your camera. We're on regular game speed. Alright. I just want to kind of get in your mindset a little bit here while we just chat about some other stuff. So you're kind of dropping on the north, you're dropping on the south, they're both kind of just waiting. You've got some Marines trying to clear up what looks like, I think you've spotted the prism down here, so you're just zoning that out. I know you're watching with a few seconds late. I'm going to pause real quick. Do you want to just refresh the stream? Make sure you're as close to live as possible.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't give you an ad. Tell me when it's back up.
No, it's okay. I got it.
All right. So yeah, just talk us through your multitasking here if you can.
Yeah. Yeah, so what you try to do with the drops is you find the most vulnerable place first. And in this case, the third wasn't even finished. Like, it was a bit weird because in this case, I knew the gas was there from before. But I didn't know if it was mining yet. So I looked at the gas to see if it was mining. And now when I saw it wasn't, I went in because I assumed there was nothing there. And then it's more... It's not usually positioning, it's more a game of like attention. Because very often, especially in tournament situation when it's stressful, people will only look at like one place at the same time, right? So you can see here, drop to way too much damage just because he's preoccupied with other stuff. So it's all about that 1-2 punch, like I said before. You distract them with something. So the main focus is to make sure that the first distraction actually gets in safely. Like you never want to send in the first thing without looking, because then you risk like running to 4 stalkers, it dies, and then your second drop comes in, but there's nothing else distracting him anymore, right?
And you actually kind of want to time it to be staggered, right? Like, I think a misconception is that you want to hit at the exact same moment. And
you want like,
if you're hitting 5 bases, it's okay to hit. If you're hitting 5 bases at once, that's like trying to overwhelm. But if it's just 2, right?
You want them to have like the 2-3 seconds to notice the alert and react to it, and then that's when you send the other distraction or whatever squad it is in.
And it's kind of like there's usually more active micro from you, right, on the one that has the bigger opening, right? So in that scenario, often it's like, okay, we've queued the other one in, let's evacuate the first one, and as soon as we kind of shift click that from one base to the other, now we can actively micro the second one that went in, because this is the one which hopefully is unattended, stim, do damage, and then we know that his attention is pulled towards it, and we deprioritize it, and we shuffle that. We say, no, you pick up, shift click out, and now we focus on the other one that's bounced to a new base, right? And you can kind of endlessly just shift the priority between those two in terms of which one you're microing, right? I find this is this really fascinating thing if you break it down just unit by unit. How it goes. So I'm gonna watch that little sequence one more time, because this was awesome. So we'll see it in a second, and here we go. All right, so you're gonna send in the attack on the third. This is the first prong that we want to distract. We want to pull the attention. Notice the other drop isn't going in yet. As this unloads, we queue the other one in. So we know that's gonna enter vision and then cause an attack command about 4 or 5 seconds after the first one gets in there, right?
Yeah.
And now we deprioritize it. We're going to micro that one on the natural a little bit more. So we're going, okay, micro, but hey, he still hasn't responded to it. Oh, he's still chasing the drop in the main. Okay. So you reprioritize the drop in the main because you realize, oh, he's not on top of that at all. And then you were kind of bouncing between both at the same time, which is a very high level thing, going, wait, which one's he responding to? And then he kind of ended up responding to both at the same time. And you tried to evacuate the one on the bottom. You realize the one in the top. You're like, wait, what? It's still doing... Oh, okay, we'll stay there.
It surprised me too. I was like, oh, okay. I'll take it.
The amount of these like set mini kind of push and pull wars that you do is so fascinating, right? And this is not a Terran thing only, right? In PvZ, I'm always doing this where my main army is running around with Immortals, with High Templar. Sorry, one sec. I honestly feel like a robot is having sex with another robot. I don't know how this is so loud. It is ridiculous. But yeah, basically, I'm threatening with the army as the Zealot run-bys are hitting in. So the whole idea is pull the attention here, and then Zealots hit a base, and shift-click on the workers, you know? And there's constantly this push and pull between create distraction or create threat, do this. A Zerg player will often run their army forward to force a Terran to siege and to look at it and think, oh, he's trying to jump on my army. And the Zerg has no intention of really committing. He might let some Ling Bane die, but it's all about trying to get those 20 Zerglings and Banelings into the third mineral line at the same time. And if the Terran's just 1 or 2 seconds slow at pulling, he loses 20 SCVs, and it's this amazing trade, you know? There's always this 1-2 punch, but you see it the most in TVP. There's like, TVP is like when it gets down to these scrappy games, it's all about the Terrans like, I cannot stand my ground and fight you, but I got maneuverability, I got multi-prong, I'm dropping from all sides. So for players wanting to study how to multi-prong and pull their opponent's attention around, this sort of game is actually perfect for that. Awesome. All right, so you ended up winning this game. A fantastic comeback in the end. Let's hop out of that replay. Were there any games against Neeb that you wanted to throw up? I didn't actually get to watch most of that series. I only caught the tail end of it. Or any of your other games from the tournament that you thought were cool? Any builds you want to show off?
Not necessarily. I feel like the coolest games I played were like really long ones. Like I played 2 cool games on World of Sleepers against Reza and Neeb. But the finals was basically me, because I felt like I showed so many builds already. It was basically me trying to meme him hard, and like I was very YOLO. I didn't do like prepared builds and stuff, so it's kind of hard for me to remember all the details even, because it was
lots of off the cuff, just kind of hopping into your flow state.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
The games are pretty good, but it's nothing.
Well, let's just answer some questions from Twitter then, as well as Twitch chat. If anyone has any really good questions, we'll go through a couple of these and just talk a little bit. So, your TVT is your best matchup. You tend to kick ass. I love watching Gabe stream. And he's like, well, I'm not necessarily not favored versus uThermal. It is just incredibly fucking stressful. I cannot commentate when I play him because he is very good. I can see he's got that stress reaction when he runs into you on the ladder, which I know means you're very frustrating to play against. So, what's the secret to your TVT? Why are you so goddamn good at TVT, man?
I kind of feel like I have all the stages of the game down quite well, and I'm also able to play the way I want to play. So for example, in TVZ, there's not that many early game builds anymore, right? You could proxy 2x, I guess, but mostly it's like you get your 2 base and then you do usually like BC or whatever. But in TVT, I have like 10 different builds that I can use to fuck someone up in like 5 minutes, right? But they're not all-ins. They just go into the same standard Raven, Viking, or Medevac, blah, 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 right? So I feel like in TVT, I can play the way I want, but I can also use like every single build to transition in a macro game, which I also understand quite well. So yeah, like most of the time I kill them, and if I don't, I can still play a good macro game out of it. And that's in other matchups I don't have like that complete understanding. Like in TVT, and my mid game is kind of off. Like I don't understand it too well, so I can win in the early game and I can win in the late game, but the mid game is like a huge gap. And in TVZ, I'm not that great at doing damage anymore. Most of my games are just very basic. But in TVT, I feel like I have it all down very well.
All right, because this is coming through. I will try to mute my mic whenever you're talking. We're just gonna minimize your camera a little bit so people can see mini Marc only over here. Apologies, guys. The drilling's even worse than it was yesterday, but we will try to do our best. Honestly, I think that's fascinating, though. The TVT, all mirror matchups are incredibly technical, and the masters of mirror matchups are the ones who have all these branches in that early game, and they understand, like you said, how to transition between them without necessarily being all in. Why is SOS, the guy who can beat like Classic and stats consistently in PvP all the time? He has all these wild builds that come out, and he's a bit more cheesy, but I think it's the same in Zerg vs. Zerg. Why is Scarlet so good against Serral to the point where, and I think she would agree with this, no hate on Scarlet, I absolutely love her as a player, but she often, in the past year and a half, is like, she should have finished most of her series against Serral. I think she has much better Zerg vs. Zerg builds than him, and she tends to slip up under pressure a little bit. But it's honestly, her builds are incredible. She's got this amazing understanding of Zerg vs. Zerg early game. With you, it's TVT, where, like you said, you've got all these things that give you this sharp edge. And the mirror matchup early game is so technical. And Terran vs. Terran, it's like these small numbers of super technical units that can be used in so many ways, right? You think about the way medevacs can work, right? Hellion drops, Marine drops, and the way they can be maneuvered into multiple angles. You've got Ravens, which are very technical. That's changed up a bit. Do you think the Raven change, is it good for TVT now that Interference Matrix isn't quite as dominant as it was before?
Honestly, the Raven change makes the matchup a bit more baboon style combined with the maps. So I feel like instead of like the 6 Vikings or a limited Viking style is now going to turn
that must be
into
awkward though, like when the first
making
time you
medevacs
with a
after
woman,
your
she's like,
Raven and
"What,
trying to doom drop a lot and stuff. Because if you make 1 Raven, usually before medevacs, they try to YOLO in, you just kill them all with 4 matrices. Now you can only get 2 and the medevacs still get in. And then if you make 2 Ravens and then Vikings, it doesn't feel that strong anymore. So you can make 2 Ravens and then medevacs, but then your medevacs are late and you're not gonna be able to move out of your base and stuff. But at the same time, something I actually overlooked until I played a game against Clem is that the Raven speed buff actually makes them outrun Vikings now. So the Raven auto turret is actually good, because before you drop a turret and the Viking, if it's somewhere near, it just kills the Raven.
Yeah, it'll corner you. You just
drop
can't.
a turret and it flies away. So that's also another mechanic and another.
That's
plus for the
actually,
Raven,
I had no idea about that. That's so fascinating, because I used to really want to. I love because like, auto turret harass tilts the shit out of people. It tilts me. Like my rule is, if someone pisses me off, I want to do it a lot because I know it's good if it's making me angry and irrational, right? And I would always want to bring my Cyclone across so that like the Viking chases and I kill the fucking Viking with my cyclone, and then the cyclone quickly runs away. And this obviously gets you in big trouble because your cyclone's on the wrong side of the map. That's meant to be a defensive unit, and like a banshee comes in. I'm like, oh, I fucking deserve this, don't I? Or a liberator slides into my mineral line, or a drop comes in and there's no cyclone to shut it down. But that's actually cool. So the Ravens can get out of there now.
Yeah. So it seems to me like the new style is like one Raven into medevacs, or maybe 2 Ravens into medevacs. So it's very different. It's a lot more drop heavy. It's not before. It was like maybe the most controlling matchup in the history of StarCraft. I think like every game was your 2 Ravens, 6 Vikings. You take control of everything, and then very slowly you move out. Like a lot of Terrans don't do shit before they have 2-2, you know. And now there's a lot more. Yeah, people are very aggressive now. So it changed a lot with the Raven and the new maps.
Yeah, it's hugely different. I found that really interesting as someone who obviously lags behind the meta a bit. I was like, wait, everyone's building medevacs now? I was like, I'm here and I'm like, let's go 8 Vikings, let's go 9 Vikings, and this guy's like got no Vikings, and I'm like, why did I just build 9 Vikings? I'm an idiot. Like, you only want enough Vikings to beat their Vikings. Like that's the right Viking count. Yep.
The thing with European Zergs hating on Korean Zergs for their gambling style or whatever, this was also a thing with European Terrans and Korean Terrans, because European Terrans were always just trying to play like the perfect game. And Korean Terrans, they don't give a fuck. They Reaper expand, no scout, and they send their Reaper and then they doom drop you. But now that's actually how we feel you're supposed to play. So I feel like European and Korean TVT is actually going to be very similar now.
Yeah, man. I remember Big Gabe having some awesome comebacks. IEM Katowice last year, I think it was, where he kept being behind, and he would just like, I'd be like, oh, he's behind. This is really bad in TVT. And Gabe was like, I will have the superior tank count and Viking count, and like, you will never break me. And like these Korean Terrans would just start trying to do this wild multi-prong and drops, and Gabe was just like either systematically shutting it down, or they'd try to go to the macro game, and he was just a little bit better at that stage of the game. Where he would just micro those big fights better. He'd be more methodical at getting a second starport, getting the Viking advantage, adding the ranged liberators, and kind of pushing through. And it's kind of cool to see that the EU meta has become the global meta almost now. It's really sick.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to Hero Marine in particular, because Hero Marine is one of those players that really hates on like the gambling plays and whatnot. So I'm curious to see if he's gonna adapt as well, or just play the same defensive to an A move style with mass tanks,
Yeah, man. Juggernaut Jason says, is mech or bio better in TVT, and why is mech better?
Actually, I think it's bio now. I was on the mech side for a long time, but it was mostly because of the old map layout. Like I feel like the old season map layout was just, you had like the triangle base setup, and they were all against the edge of the map. So there was like no dead space behind your mineral lines or whatever, and it was very easy to defend everything. And honestly, mech just shits on bio late game, like totally. So it was very easy to sit there. I would just sit there. I get like 200 supply with 2/2, and you just straight A move through. But now on the new maps, I feel like it's too hard to defend with mech. So you're gonna have to do like semi shitty openings, like 3 factory before armory, so you get your 2/2 like way too late to actually hit any timing, and upgrades actually make a big difference with mech. So I feel like on this map pool, I think bio is actually better than mech.
Yeah, especially Nightshade and Simulacrum, I think, are the 2 maps which accentuate this map pool more than any other, right? With gigantic spread between the Zen as well, yeah. Big spread between the bases, wide open areas, big areas to drop in the main base. There's some real power, with being more mobile on these maps. And Ephemeron, a map that's carried over from last season's pool, another map where that map's a bit better for mech, I would say, but in general you get very spread out as you get a fourth base on that map.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's it. I think bio is better now just because of that. If you play like, for example, Road of Sleeper, still I would still favor mech, because you have that triangle all bases to the edge of the map setup. But all of the others, like Triton, is actually not that great for mech either. So yeah, this is the bio map pool, I think.
Okay, awesome. Ooh, okay. How many languages do you speak, and what languages do you play StarCraft in? A quick little non-strategy question.
How much languages do I speak? I speak Dutch and English.
Do you play in Dutch or English?
English.
You do
I
play
don't,
in English.
I don't know if there's even a Dutch version. If there were, I would definitely not want to play it.
Can you say what would nuclear launch detected sound like? Can you can you say that in Dutch for us?
I don't even know. I feel like my English is better than my Dutch. What's a nuke even? Raket is a missile. I'm not even sure, to be honest.
Nuke Dutch. All right, I'm googling it. We gotta do this. Translation for nuke in Dutch is nook. I think it's nook.
What?
Let me. Yes, I accept.
It says nucleaire lancering gedetecteerd.
Why,
That's
thank
nuclear
you.
launch detected.
My man. All right, we're gonna get that uThermal Dutch voice pack coming out soon. Okay. All right. I mean, we talked very briefly about Terran and kind of having less scouting options and how the scans don't really make up for it because they're so expensive, right? And just in general, obviously, foreign Terrans have had a big thing holding them back from winning tournaments for a long time. People are always asking me this recently. It's normally something I steer away from because it's such a deep topic. But I guess quickly, without going too deep, feel free actually.
Okay.
What do you think is holding back foreign Terrans from winning tournaments? And I mean, this doesn't have to just be about foreign Terrans. You can just talk about Terran in general. I think trying to draw a difference, it gets too confusing.
I think there's two main reasons. I think a big reason is actually the WCS format, because Terran is simply the best when you surprise your opponent with your builds, right? But if a Terran is predictable.
Oh, we've lost you temporarily. I think we'll have you back in a sec, Marc. Let me know when you can hear me.
I can hear you.
You said if a Terran is predictable.
Yeah, if a Terran is predictable, it's just not going to go well. Like, standard play is not really the way to play Terran right now. If you do like one build against Protoss every time, you're going to get shit on pretty fast, and the same against Zerg.
Yeah.
With the BC opener against Zerg, you're allowed to be a bit more predictable these days, but in general, especially for bigger series, you kind of need new builds. You need to surprise your opponent, and that's when Terran is the strongest. And in WCS, you can't do that. You probably play like 12 series over 2 or 3 days, and by the time you play like the really good players in the round of 8, round of 16, they know what you're gonna do. It's a best of 5 or best of 7. Most of your builds are known, and you won't be able to do builds that surprise them on a high enough level. Like you can do builds you haven't done before, but you probably haven't practiced them as much as the others.
Well, that's the kicker.
So
it's mechanically demanding, right? I mean, Terran, there's no argument about this. Terran is the more mechanically demanding race. Like, you get punished harder for hitting a supply block or missing a production cycle, right? Because you need all your production to be non-stop, right? So you do an unfamiliar build, those mistakes happen twice as much. And that will end up killing you. And as a pro gamer, that's even more frustrating than your strategy not working, right? If you're like, oh, well, I got supply blocked twice in this game and that's why I lost. Like, that feels terrible, right?
Actually, me against Neeb in Philadelphia was a very good example, because I did builds that I didn't practice that much, but they worked. But I missed in every game, I missed one thing that would have won me the game, that if I would actually have played those builds twice, I'd have actually legitimately won those games. Like, in one of the games, I crippled him, but I wasn't sure about my position. And then it turned out if I just make 2 bunkers, I just instant win the game because I'm really far ahead, but I had this counterattack. In another game, I did a push that worked, but I felt like I was really all in. And he dove in with 2 oracles. If I kept one Viking at home to kill the oracles, I would have been far ahead and won the game, but I didn't know. And that's kind of how it worked. If I did, imagine I play a random best of 7 against Neeb in a tournament, and I do those builds and I practice them, I would have actually won all of the first 4 games. Imagine just in a vacuum where everything is the same, right? And that's what I see a lot in the WCS. Either you do the same builds and you're predictable and you get countered hard, or you try other stuff and it doesn't run that well,
Yeah.
So I feel like that is a very big reason, that the WCS format.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and the second biggest reason is that I feel like Terran is a bit of a race of perfection. So I feel like if you're on top of everything and you play perfect, I feel like you can just steamroll everyone. Like we saw that with Maru, like winning so many GSLs. If you just do everything perfect, you can definitely steamroll everything. But I feel like Terran suffers the most from like small mistakes. Like, yeah, if you just even if you're a bit nervous or a bit off, like everything that's a bit less cost you a lot as Terran. So I just feel like in a WCS where you need to play so many games as well on the same day, it's not possible to play on top of your game for all of the games. I feel like so. I think the unforgivingness of mistakes for Terran, I feel like is the second biggest reason for that.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, and that's this might not to hate on Gabe, but I think Gabe is a very predictable, often uninspired Terran player strategically, but he is the guy who can grind and be so consistent over these like long sessions where he kind of just consistently seems to pound through these WCS brackets, doing the same builds and just kind of performing better than his opponents. And he's the guy who's like, well, he does these marathon ladder sessions where he's like, well, I'm just playing better. But I would actually argue with this whole context of like, if we're just brainstorming here, what's the ultimate way to practice? It's like maybe there's like a TVP regimen where it's like we as Terran players have to change our goal from perfection with our builds to variety. And like obviously it's like there's limitations. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but it's like it's like maybe the way to get that series against Neeb, right, to work is like we have to cut off our practice with a build. We need to change where we're comfortable. Normally, you get a build and you're like, I'm good with it, but I want more games. I want more games. You want to have that completely in tune with a build. Every branch, every variation. Maybe we as Terran players need to change our focus a little bit and say like, oh, I need to get to the point where I'm pretty good at it, and then I need to just fucking work on a different build and another build and like split my practice up across a wider range, especially for a matchup like TVP where, it is so much about trying to throw our opponent off. We see the extreme end of this with players who I'm not 100% sure ever practice, Massa. And just he's like, I want to build my buildings here and there, here and there, here. And there's definitely a magic to it, and he's got plans and things, but you can tell that he is just trying to do the craziest shit possible to always force his opponent, to not know what's coming. I mean, do you think there's
a good approach for sure? But
Yeah.
at the same time, I feel like you also want to be solid, like because not every opponent you play against is going to be Neeb, right? You're also going to play against Protoss that might be on your level or worse than you. And like it's the same thing. Even if you have a lot of builds, you run out of them eventually. So you do still need to play like standard builds a lot. I think a good example of what I'm saying with the variety in TVP is people like Future and Massa, because they have really good success against a lot of Protoss players. Like Massa had a pretty one-sided series against Australia. Future takes a lot of maps off Neeb, and they're the TVP player that I'm talking about. Like they don't have the solid build down necessarily, but they do so many different things and they have all the different builds. And that's how you get there. But it's very hard to be in that state of TVP and still be good at the other matchups as well and stuff. It's not like I can just come up with 10 TVP builds out of my ass, and bring them to the tournament and take down the best Protoss players while still being solid against the lesser Protoss players and good in the other two matchups. So.
Well, that's it, right? So I guess, I mean, obviously it's not like I would love for us to be able to come like, well, why don't we just practice 5 more strategies and we'll win every tournament? If only it was this simple, right? But I guess if we put this in context, the way we could understand this, and if there's an up and coming Terran player thinking about this, I guess there's 2 things they could draw from what we've just said. One is choosing your builds, try to save your best or sneakiest builds. Don't use them versus worst players unless you really have to, right? Unless you're down in a series. There's builds you just want to save for that Neeb, that Showtime, those big boys, right? And try to practice a bit more strategies and be comfortable being a little bit less, like, super sick with each build, right? Super solid, right? Which is tough, right? But I think there's got to be, like, maybe it's a 5% adjustment, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm going to do a little bit, like 5 or 10% less, really getting that tiny, like, last tiny bits of refinements in my strategies. And instead, I'm going to put that into, getting a bunch of games with these more wild strategies that I have in my back pocket. Or maybe it's just 2 or 3 wild strategies. I mean, if you had to think about it, after the last tournament, your recent month or 2 of training regimen, let's say leading to the first WCS season, You're thinking TVP is the focus. That's what you want to improve at. What do you think would be the number of like shifting your focus away from refining the builds to adding a bit more diversity? Do you think it's 10% more? Do you think just do it the same as you're doing it currently? What do you reckon?
It's hard to say, really. I feel like most of the time you kind of get to a point where you choose either of them. Like, it's very hard to say I'm improving my late game and I'm thinking of 20 strategies, right? So I feel like you should probably prioritize the one or the other. Like right now, I feel like my macro game against Proto is pretty good, so I could practice that for like a week more, and then after that, let's say WCS starts 10 January, whatever. That means I would have 2 more weeks. Then I can spend those 2 weeks like finding a lot of builds for TVP.
And while you're finding those builds, would you still do like a few games a day of macro practice, or do you like to just really hit one build hard for like a week straight every TVP?
I feel like what makes most sense is that you have the times where you practice both, and then like a few days before the tournament, I have like a practice session with any random Protoss, and then I just pretend like I'm playing a series against them. Like I throw like kind of everything at them, so I make sure everything is kind of in the right spot.
Yeah, it's like proper sparring practice as you get closer to the tournament. Get the pieces and put them together, right? So there's that gradual build up.
Before Philadelphia too, I played some TVP and some TVT, and I would just throw everything at them that I had, and I was happy with it. So that's when you practice enough, I guess.
Hells yeah, man. Awesome. Question which is close to my heart. You're not a fan of using ghosts in TVP. Apparently you've publicly said this. You did in one first series against Neeb, but then you didn't make them again against the rest of the Protoss players, even though a lot of Terrans think they are a must in the matchup.
Yeah.
Is this accurate? What do you think?
I feel like the problem with the Ghost is that it's pretty easy to get outplayed when you have Ghost, because when you have Ghost, your armor needs to be together for them to be useful. So I feel like the moment you get Ghost, you're just kind of running around as a blob, and then like those are the games where you see a TVP when Protoss looks really broken, when like Zealots get in here and the Prism gets in there and there's some disruptors at the front and Terran just looks like he's getting owned. That's usually because they just have the one big blob with the Ghost, I think. But I think the Ghosts are good in the late game, so that's when I get them, like the actual late game. I prefer to get Libs first, then you get Tempest, you get Vikings. And then once you're actually ready to take a big fight, you can make some Ghosts, get a really good engagement starting, and that's it. But I feel like, in general, just running around with a bunch of Ghosts just makes your army slow and makes it easy for you to get outplayed on multiple fronts. Unless you're going for a timing, I think Ghosts can work with a timing, but just to randomly make Ghosts in a mid or late game is not really my jam.
I am so in agreement with you there. I like honestly feel like I finally found a really high level Terran who agrees with me on this. Because I, for the longest time, I was like, look, and obviously I spent a lot of time coaching lower level players, and this isn't as interesting for you, but just for some of the people watching, like always coaching these platinum players, like I have a Raven, 2 Libs, 2 tanks, and 2 Ghosts in my bio army. And I'm like, you're in fucking Diamond League. What are you doing? This is like 6. This is two. You got 3 Widow Mines as well. 3 siege units, a Raven, a Ghost, and bio. And the army just fucking walks through Storm and Colossus in a blob and dies. And I'm like, what do you think's gonna happen? I can't control that army. Fucking Hero Marine, uThermal can't control that army. Like, what are you doing in Diamond League trying to use this many fancy units? That's why I always coach people and I say, you make bio and medevacs, and then fucking Liberators. I mean, you can use mines as well, but even as the game goes later, everyone just fucks up their mind control at levels. I'm like, just get good at the bio lib, because you can actually outposition. You can siege a lib on a mineral line. It's a big problem. You can send a drop in. You got this mobile army that can roam around and catch the Protoss out. If you sit back too long, you're also just giving Protoss more time to get up. Oh, I've got a cannon and a battery and a high Templar at each base. We had a whole meta. We were talking about Automaton earlier. We had a meta. I remember it was Gumiho on that map, who was like a base and a half up from his early pressure. Literally, he was 25 workers up on a Protoss the entire game, and all he did was build Bio Ghost. And he was like just expanding constantly and eating storm drops. And this was the time when Terran's like, you can't beat Storm Drop, it's OP. And I was like, build a fucking Viking. What are you doing? And he refused to build a single Libor Viking. It was just not Biomine Ghost. And he just kept eating Storm Drops and eating Storm Drops. And he threw this game so hard. And he was ahead after taking terrible fight. Takes another terrible fight. And I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, this is... You can use this army, but you got to build 2 Vikings. And that's pretty standard for Terran against Storm Drop now, right? 2 Vikings in the comp.
Yeah. Well, eventually you get more, I guess, but...
Yeah. I mean, an EMP and, like, 4 Viking shots and a Prism just gets snapped out of the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a few Marines stim forward and click on it.
That's what I like to do.
But that's cool. I like that idea of, like, you know, once you're on 4 base, right? Like, you'd go 4th Command Center before Ghost Academy normally, right? Because you're going to them pretty late in the game.
Yeah.
Are you finding the new libs better in TVP? I find they're so much easier to get to that I'm preferring it right now. But
yeah. No, they're fine. I think they're the range, it doesn't bother me that much. It could be different for other Terrans. I know some other Terrans prefer to have the range, but for me, I feel like the transition is so much easier that you don't feel like you're like crippling yourself for 3 minutes until you get libs out. You know, making a fusion core and lifting your star for and building a second one. Yeah, you can also do things like just go 1 starport liberator now for a bit if you're not too rich, because you can just get the lib range without getting an extra starport. So I feel like it's very comfortable now to get libs out.
They're a great unit. Oh man, I love the liberators. Bring some freedom to the mineral line. I do miss a few seasons ago there was map pools where you could just siege range libs without stalkers being able to hit them literally everywhere. So if Protoss didn't open Stargate, it was like funny.
There's some spots still where you can do that. Like on World of Sleepers, you can, for example.
Even with the new 1 less range lib?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. World of Sleepers. All right, note to self. That's the one I gotta use. Because he used to be Kairos Junction. Every base had a spot. Like, pretty sure Kairos Junction at every base with range lib. Like,
It's back in the map. No, Kairos Junction was pretty close to the edge, I think.
Let me think. Was it Kairos? Or am I thinking of maybe Port Alexander? One of those had like...
Oh, it's Port Alexander. Yeah.
Port Alexander had the really gross spots. Okay, yeah. There was a few maps in that pool where, you know, you could just queue libs onto mineral lines as a low-level noob, and it was fun, man. You know, it's really... Terran is a great race when you're playing against bad Protoss players. Like, you should Smurf someday, man. You'll have a great time. Nice. Yeah, so we've got a Platinum player in chat who said, well, I'm one of those Plats, but what if I get Ghost as a response to scouting info? Well, I think you shouldn't be scouting and basing your composition on that. I think Liberators beat everything, and positioning beats everything, personally. I don't think, I think the main problem most Terran players have, if you're not in Masters or GM, is you don't have a solid build order yet, usually, 90% of the time, and you don't really have a game plan. So trying to react to things is probably a little bit too fancy. I think choose a composition that you use every game, whether that be a big mass bio tank push, a big mass bio lib push, and just get good at controlling that would be my advice for lower level players. What do you think as someone who never really gets to hang out in the newbie space, Mark, as a pro gamer? What do you think would be your advice?
I see this question in some forum a lot, is that people see like a Templar Archives and then they make a Ghost Academy in response, but a Ghost honestly doesn't really counter a High Templar. A Ghost just lowers the energy or the shields of the Protoss army, and that's what it does. Like, you're not going to make a Ghost to counter a High Templar because it's going to be in a Prism or whatever, and the EMP doesn't even drain all the shields, or the energy, I mean.
Yeah.
So, like, the counter to Mass Gateway style is actually to just not do anything and make a wall. Like, just make more bio units and sit for as long as possible, because bio is actually better than gateway units once the numbers go up. So, if you scout, like, Mass Gateway units, the response would actually be to just make some depots next to your third base or whatever to not get A-moved by zealots too easily, get some mines. No, don't spend your money on Ghosts. You're just going to have too few units, most likely.
You were mentioning earlier, if you scout Colossus in TVP, and I was just thinking about this. We'll finish up in a sec, by the way. I've already stolen a huge amount of your time, so thanks for the generosity. But you go 4 tech labs. What if people go charge like Colossus and actually go for like good armor upgrades and like a good zealot count? Like, does it get weird having to like kind of kite backwards and let the Widow Mines do the work? Because Marauders are not very good at clearing zealots.
Not really, because the thing is, you don't always have to attack, right? So if they go charged up Colossus, which is actually a very low gas style, despite the Colossus, if they go Zealot Colossus, this actually means they're on like 4 gas only, or something like this. Like the less gases you see, the better it is to just sit there. So if I see someone going like mass Zealot Colossus, like Rail even does that of like 2 gas in total. Like it's perfectly fine to just go back and make your libs, and then you know it's a totally fine situation, I think.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I like that. I get very obsessed with like having enough Marines and enough mines against Mass Zealot.
Yeah.
But it's probably something I do obsess over a little bit too much. I mean, there's certainly a point where, you know, you hit a late enough stage in the game, and Zealots they're a melee unit that clump up and get stuck behind each other, and unless they're getting a beautiful surround on you, you know, they're not exactly the game changer that they are in the early mid game, right? Awesome, man. Well, I think I don't know if there was any questions like from much earlier that I missed, but you know what? We've already asked you more than enough questions. I think this was a really good little conversation about
cool.
TVP. I guess, you know, if we had to summarize a few things in terms of like, why aren't Terrans doing well in that question? I think that is something which I often forget about, is that WCS format, right? You know, the weekend tournament format is really rough for Terran players with their preparation. Obviously, you know, dealing with the hand that's dealt to you, hopefully some useful advice for some of the up-and-coming Terrans there with, you know, trying to practice some diverse strategies and balance that with just being a macro god. And there's got to be some perfect fine point there for each player and their style, right? Someone who just wants to macro every game maybe goes more of a big game 100%, you know, in one direction. Someone like you who's a more volatile and a tactical, you know, genius, probably a little bit more in the other direction, I guess, where you allocate a little bit more towards those wild Maru strategies, whether Maru is in Massa or Maru is in Maru. Yeah, man. Awesome. This was great. So what's going on for you next, man? Any upcoming tournaments or anything? Just chilling out for the holidays until WCS gets announced, I guess.
Yeah, I don't actually have too much to do. I have like we have some matches in the Wardy Team League left with Team Liquid, but besides that, I think that's actually about it for this year. I might sign up for some random online cups. Might do some streams.
Oh, the return of the thermy stream? Hells yeah. When was the last time you streamed? I haven't caught you streaming
Yesterday.
You streamed yesterday? Dude, you must stream at the time when I'm either live or just never watching. But
I streamed like right now, I think, but yesterday.
Okay, cool. Awesome, man. All right, well, I'm going to get a link and post it in chat. Guys, it is, of course, I mean, what is it? Liquid Thermy on Twitter right now?
Yep.
Liquid Thermy Twitter, and what is the what's the stream link at the moment?
Liquid Thermy as well.
It's just Liquid Thermy on everything. All right, guys, Liquid Thermy on Twitter, Liquid Thermy on Twitch. Thank you very much, Marc. Big shout out to the SCV upstairs who apparently is trying to repair a burning command center. Because I'm like, are you not done? Are there 3 burning command centers? Fucking going to him. It's, I don't know. There's like a worker rush or something. There's like 2 SCVs fighting and each one has 5 SCVs repairing them or something, or a medevac. I don't know what's going on. Big apologies to everyone with good bassy speakers. Thank you, Marc, for putting up with it, as I know it's not even filtered by my audio settings in OBS to you through Discord, so you're getting it even worse than the audience. Thank you very much for coming on, man. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're going to have probably Lambo on next week. We'll try and get some Zergs and everything. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good night.
See ya.
Thanks so much, Marc. Much love, dude. I hope you have a good day, dude. And I'd love to get you on again in the future. Hopefully with some less technical issues, we get a professional overlay. Hopefully ready for the next show.
Less drilly boys.
Hells yeah, man. And we can kind of go over some WCS replays that haven't been broken by a patch. So we're kind of, you know, showing each other things live in game and all that sort of stuff. That'll be really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. All right, well, have a good one. Good night, brother.
Have a nice too. Later.
Merry Christmas, man. Big thanks to Marc for volunteering 2 hours of his time. Oh my god, that show went so long. I can barely hear myself think. I am so sorry, guys. I really fucking hope they're finished by the time the Pylon show starts. If not, maybe I'll just get a headset, get my laptop, and go down to the park. I'll do the pylon show from the park on my laptop or something with my phone internet. I don't know. Anything's got to be better than this. It's funny because I know there's some people like, I'm listening on shitty in-ear headphones. It's fine. I barely hear it. And then the people who've got good speakers are like, what the fuck is happening? Because they're getting those low bassy tones, just like. Thank you very much for hanging out, guys. Appreciate it. I love you all. For those of you who don't know about the Pig Show, this is a new strategy StarCraft personality talk show. It's a mix of everything. This is literally just, I want to talk about StarCraft, learning and improving, and give you guys a bit of insight into the players' lives. I would have had a lot more conversation about trying to just see what his life's like at the moment in practice. I just found it a little bit hard to get a flowing conversation go with all the noise, and obviously I had to minimize his screen there. You know, trying to you know, mute my mic so it wasn't drowning out his own thoughts. I think he did a really good job with it, so that was great. So the playlist is there in chat. Please do give it a follow. Go check out the Pig Show playlist. First guest was Showtime. Second one, we had a nice impromptu show with Raze, who showed us, that was a much more strategy-focused one on a mass stasis macro PVZ, which he wanted to talk about, and I was like, fuck yeah, let's do this. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, for hanging out. I really appreciate